Welcome to the Judgment Free Zone. You download the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast, episode 56 for June 26, 2023.
Now adjust the volume control so that the sound can be heard in all parts of the room.
Recorded live from the cornfields of Central Illinois, you're listening to the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast with Matt and Amy. Come and learn and share a journey with two former craft beer enthusiasts who went from daily drinkers to teetotalers and basically never lost their love for their life together.
Hey, a freak show!
Hello there, children. Welcome back to your weekly Freak Show. This is the Alcohol Free Marriage Podcast. I am Matt, along with the always lovely and looking all fancy over there, Coach Amy. How are you, my love?
I am laughing because you're saying I'm looking all fancy.
I don't know. I don't know. For a Sunday, for just a Sunday doing grocery shopping and whatnot.
It's hot.
It is hot in her.
And I don't know about you,
It's
ladies.
hot out there. What?
There's a lot of ladies who are like me. I would love to just put on a little dress.
Yeah.
Because it's hot. But unfortunately, today it's also windy. So that also makes the dress challenging.
Wendy. Not to be confused with Wendy, who you'll hear from our interview this week.
Yes.
There's a song called Wendy, isn't there?
I think there is.
Yes.
And there's a restaurant, Wendy's.
Wendy's, not Wendy's. There's not a Wendy's. There's a Windjammer here in the cornfields.
But that's actually W-I-N-D.
Yes. Okay, well, welcome to Wind Talk. We are not a weather podcast.
I will tell you that. We are not
But
a weather
welcome back.
podcast.
Like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Share this podcast if you
share
like it.
Go out there and rate us.
Just give it a click 5-star. Boom. Done. That's
Yeah.
all you got to do. You don't even have to write a review. Review's awesome if you want to do that.
We would love a
Super
review.
duper love you if you do that, but just click a star. Preferably 5 of them, but
Yes, please 5.
Be honest, or if it's not 5, lie. I don't know.
There you go.
But anyway, and while you're out there on the interwebs, go to jointheirside.com where you can find all of our helpful tips, including our guide that helped us quit, the 7 tips. It's the 5 o'clock somewhere alcohol-free edition. Download that, and Coach Amy will send it to you.
Yeah, actually, the nice thing is that actually automatically happens now. Woohoo!
Ooh, you're so fancy with your technology,
Not really.
Coach Amy.
Not really. I did figure that out. If you ask me to do it again, gonna be hard.
You're gonna be hard pressed.
But I learned it once, so I can learn it again.
There you go. Let's do our drink of the week first.
Okay.
We only have one this week, and this week.
Well, I'm gonna give
Oh,
mine.
I give yours first.
My
Do
2 honorable mentions because it is summer, and I am absolutely. I love Topo Chico.
and you're a creature
lime.
of habit, so.
I love it. I mean, that has.
And
I
there's
would
Topo
have to
Chico, not lime. You can add lime to the regular, and it's about
Yes,
the same.
but when they have it at the grocery store,
Surprisingly expensive, but
it's
it's
so
really good. And you don't drink it like
good.
gallons and gallons.
No, and also I'm loving the hop water peach.
That peach hop water is.
Oh, guys.
I should have grabbed another one today when we were at the store, but I did not.
And I want to say with the hop water, it really does have those calming properties
The
in it.
adaptogens.
The adaptogens.
I think that's
The
what
neuro
the nootropics.
nootropics. Yes.
Yeah.
And I have to say that they really, that has been very helpful for me. Especially,
Which is good because like you've tried CBD and that.
No, I don't. I
doesn't work
don't
for
like
you.
that.
No.
It doesn't. But this, if I'm like, oh, okay, I had a really stressful day or whatever, and maybe I don't know, maybe it's just in my brain,
But hey, if it works, it works. Whether it's in your brain or placebo or not, it still works.
and I really enjoy that. And then being out and about this last week, I love a good cherry limeade. The one that we had at Biaggi's.
Oh,
They have one that is, I love it.
that's like a real one. Yeah.
Yes. No, it's not like the big giant Slurpee cup that you go through, which
Sonic.
I do like that one too. But
That's just a pile of sugar. But
yes, but this one is a fun drink that I really, really do enjoy.
our actual drink, we found this at Fresh Time Market, I believe. Mm-hmm. It looks like it says sober, but it's called So Beer. And it's only 30 calories. And I don't remember where it's brewed. I think it's brewed, I don't know, it doesn't matter. But it is very good. It's very light.
It's a good, it's a nice, just a good summer beer.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't say it's anything to write home about, but it's nothing to put your nose up at. It's a nice, and I really like the label. It's kind of cool. So,
which is kind of funny. Brewed and bottled in Wisconsin Brewing Company.
The thing, So Beer's out of Florida or something. I don't know.
The
But
Naked Collective.
We do have a local brewer here who actually brews and bottles Big Drop Brewing's NA beer. So it happens in other breweries. I think they just vendor it out maybe.
Absolutely.
So
it's really, really good.
Coach Amy, before we get to Wendy's interview, which is awesome, you have a Marriage Monday tip for us.
Yes, let me pull that up.
Which is a good thing I get that. If it's not Monday when you're listening, pretend it is.
Well, we're doing with our couples coaching that is, we're in training for. I want to say that is one of the things where we've decided let's do a Marriage Monday or
Post
marriage.
type.
Well, we're calling it a Marriage and More Monday.
Because we
post.
love M's.
Well, because...
Matt's Marriage and More Monday moment.
Yeah. Oh, you should be doing
there
it.
you go. Okay, what's our marriage tip, Amy?
Well, what I wanted to... Let's see, do I have...
We're going to do next week. Listen, next week we're going to have, I think, 10 that we'll go through. But we'll tease you with one of them this week.
Sure we will.
If Amy will get to it. She's so prepared.
It was right here. Guys, I'm so sorry. There we go.
There you go. Okay.
Click on that. It's popping up. That's not the right one. But that's
welcome to
okay.
my
We're just gonna go with it.
Could you just make something up? This is great.
Okay. No, I did. No, here it is.
Okay, go.
It disappeared and then it popped back up.
All right.
Put down your phone.
Face down.
Put it down. Put it in the other room. Give yourselves time together without a phone. Put it, it might be like you don't like to go somewhere without just having a phone.
A phone, at least.
On us, which, we've gotten to that point where we like, it's like our security blanket.
You never know when you might have to Google a random thing.
True.
Or we were actually going shopping, so we need the list.
Yeah. But to be able to put your phone down and actually have a conversation with your spouse or your partner or your kids, make the relationship a priority. Give that other person your attention. I think that is probably one of the biggest keys that we need to do is that we need to stop always in that constant scroll and
the doom scroll.
Look at the phone as a tool. It's a tool. Like you just said, we were using our phone at the grocery store. We have our list on it and everything. We're using it as a tool.
Right.
But when you are in the presence of this other person and you're just sitting there scrolling,
Yeah, I'm listening. No, you're not. You're not listening.
No. So I want to say that would be our tip. And that has been something that we both have a hard time with, but I think we're both becoming much more observant of our own mutual habits on that. Like, oh, okay. Like if you walk in, I will take my phone and put it down and put it off to the side. Right. I'm trying to do that with Maggie as well. When she comes in, when she's home from work, I put it down.
Let's be honest. Most of the time, we're just killing time. We're not doing anything.
Exactly.
Real. I mean, we're not honestly doing something productive. So.
Yes. So I wanted to tell everybody that is, give your partner that attention that they deserve. And you deserve it. And when you both can connect, it might not even be very long. But if that person comes in and maybe, I have no idea, but maybe you're heading out of the house or whatever, instead of sitting there, okay, I'm leaving. Okay. Like to put it down, to get up, to go and give you a hug or a kiss and say, I love you, and making you a priority and a focus.
Think analog, kids. Think analog. Write a note.
And if you don't know what analog is, please go look it up. It's old-timey.
It's old-timey.
It's so... Is it last century?
It's from the 1900s, Amy. All right. Speaking of things that aren't from the 1900s, tell us about Wendy's and her interview with us today.
Wendy McCallum, LLB, is a burnout and alcohol coach and the host of the Bite Size Balance podcast. And she is also, I always have to go and look this up because I always call it the BBB. And what the BBB stands for is Business Building Boot Camp. I had to get that right. She's also a business coach, and she's been my business coach now for a little over a year, I believe is when I started her program, and it is great. But Wendy teaches busy professionals who are nearing burnout or often using alcohol to cope how to reclaim time for themselves, reduce stress, build healthier habits, and increase their daily joy. No stranger to burnout herself, Wendy spent 12 plus years working as a lawyer, then partner in Calgary. As a business litigator and mom of 2 young children, she struggled to find her work-life balance. And in 2008, she left law and to create a life she didn't need to escape from. Alcohol-free since January of 2018. Wendy is also a certified senior naked mind alcohol coach, and you can find more out about her at her website, which is wendymccallum.com. And you can also follow her on Instagram at Beat Burn Out and Booze. So we'll go ahead and we'll just jump to that interview right now. Welcome, Wendy McCallum, to our podcast. I am so excited that you are here. Just a side note or kind of a introduction, Wendy is actually my business coach, and I met her through the This Naked Mind training. She's a senior coach, and she started this, it's called BBB, and I'm going to let Wendy talk about that later, but Wendy has a great backstory, and I wanted to have her come on and just really opening up this possibility when you quit drinking, what actually can happen. So I know, Wendy, you were previously a coach before you became an alcohol and a burnout coach, but if we can just kind of get your backstory, actually, probably before we do that, if you can tell everybody where you're from, a little bit about yourself, and where you're at in the world, because you're actually not in the States either.
No, I'm talking to you from Halifax, Nova Scotia, which is on the very east coast of Canada. And I have lived here now for about 15 years and spent some time out in Calgary, Alberta, which is on the west side of Canada, which is where my kids were born and where I met my husband. And that was my previous life. So I guess that segues me into my backstory pretty well. I was a lawyer in Calgary for about 12 years. In the last 5 years, I was a partner at a large firm out there, and it was just never really the right fit for me. It was something that I didn't do because I really, really wanted to be a lawyer. I did it for some reasons that probably weren't the best reasons, mostly listening to what other people were saying. And I stuck with it for probably too long as well. And that was the cause of my first burnout, was the fact that I was doing a job that I didn't love. And it was also a very, very demanding job. And then in that time, I also ended up having 2 children very, very close together. So my kids are 7 months apart, because one of them was adopted and the other one was born 7 months later. So they're very, very close in age. And I made partner in that same year at the firm. So there was a lot going on, and I got super burnt out, and I ended up deciding to leave that, move back across the country to Nova Scotia with my husband and my kids, and kind of start a new life. And that's when my coaching career began. I went back to school after spending a year with my kids before they started school. I went back to college and did a certification in natural nutrition, which was a quite intense year-long program. And then had to decide what I wanted to do. And I had never run a business before. I had no idea what I was doing. But I was lucky enough to be married to somebody who had a real entrepreneurial spirit, and who had come from a family of kind of business go-getters. And so he was really encouraging, and I decided to give it a go. So I hung out a shingle and I started coaching then, mostly around food and wellness. And I did that for about 5 years. But what happened was, in the course of that, I started working mostly with women, and mostly with women who were really busy working parents. And it became really, really clear to me that those women needed to know less what to eat and more how on earth to make it happen. So they were just so stressed and so overwhelmed. And they really needed the tools, more of the tools, how to slow down, how to set boundaries, how to say no more often, and how to take care of themselves. And that sort of segued me into more of the burnout coaching, away from the food coaching. And I then decided to go and get a general coaching certification through the Coactive Training Institute, and really started coaching women who were stressed and overwhelmed and burnt out. And in the course of all of that work, I realized that I was shying away from a topic with my clients, which was their drinking. And that was because I felt completely disingenuous talking about it, because I was drinking too much at the time, really was not happy with my own relationship with alcohol. So about 5.5 years ago, I decided to explore my relationship with alcohol in a way that I had never done before, which was through a 30-day alcohol experiment. That's how I was first introduced to This Naked Mind. And I have not had a drink since. Now, that sounds like it was super easy and I just did the experiment and that was the end of it. That's not really how it was at all. I had spent years and years before I did that experiment trying to control my drinking, trying to moderate, failing every single time, really feeling hopeless around all of it. So it just so happened that that experiment sort of came across my path at exactly the right time for me. And I was ready for something completely different. And I was ready to really lean into it and open up my mind and try something totally different. And for the first time ever, I started asking myself really important questions, like, what if you're wrong about this? What if it's actually better to not drink? What if your life is actually better? What if there's more possible and available to you if you leave this thing behind, instead of what I had been thinking, which was, this is going to suck. This is going to be so hard. You're going to miss out on things. You're never going to be able to have as much fun or to cope in the way that you have, that you were able to when you were still drinking. So, that shift in mindset really into that place of curiosity around it, what if you're wrong? What if all these things you believe aren't actually true? That's really what led me to, I think, I know that's what led me to being able to just keep doing it and eventually get to that place where I felt like it was really small and irrelevant. And so then I went back and I got certified through This Naked Mind because I love the methodology so much. And I, at that point, felt like I have to coach my clients around this, because so many of my clients were using alcohol as well as their primary coping mechanism. And so now I do a combination of burnout and really the burnout and alcohol coaching for busy professional women. And that's sort of the niche that I serve.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I also do the business coaching, which we'll talk about later. But yeah.
And I want to ask you about that disconnect that you had when you were coaching these women, because I know that we've experienced this with professionals, with our doctors who are like, oh yeah, I've told Matt, oh, you can keep drinking, just have a couple, it'll be fine. I mean, what were those conversations like for you?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly just didn't talk about it directly. I would definitely raise it in the context of balance. So, I was always coaching women around balance, and with everything else in my world as a burnout and balance coach, moderation is actually a really, really tremendous goal. But with alcohol, my own experience was showing me that it was just horrible to try to moderate, and that was actually really, really difficult and not joyful at all. And so I was struggling with that because I didn't know there was another option. To me, it was either go to Alcoholics Anonymous and declare myself an alcoholic and powerless against the substance, or moderate, right? So for me, with my clients, I would, I was definitely still talking to them about how to cut back. I would talk to them about moderation. I would talk to them about making sure that when they were including alcohol, it felt like it was, I mean, it's probably, I can't remember the exact words I would have used around it, but probably words like, make sure that it's actually part of the celebration and you're not using it as a way to cope. And, what are like, I just didn't have the language, Amy. I wasn't equipped because I didn't understand my own relationship with alcohol well enough to talk about it. So I would have recommended for sure that people go get extra support around it if it appeared to be a very problematic relationship. But most of the women that I was working with were on the gray area drinking spectrum. They were like me. So it was, it didn't look objectively problematic. And I did not have the language. I was not equipped to ask the right question, which is like, how is it serving you? And what if your life would be better without it? And why don't we just try to take a break for a while and see how that goes and get curious? And I didn't have that language then. So I felt so much better after that. I couldn't wait to start telling people I was coaching around alcohol because I had already been coaching at that point for about 10 years when I got certified around alcohol. So it allowed me to really just lean into this niche that felt like the perfect niche for me. And I love it. I've been doing it now for 3 years. Yeah.
Yeah. And I imagine I wanted to ask you more about like when you got into that methodology. I mean, talk to me about that, because I think people who don't listen to the show, or people who are not familiar with this Naked Minds methodology, they're like us with that gray area drinking. And so, I mean, how did you feel when you actually found this?
Well, it was interesting because it actually did align perfectly with all the other stuff I was saying. So it's not like, there's tons of science that I wasn't aware of, and that was really, really helpful. I'm very much a science-minded person, so I need to know that something is true before I start talking about it. And so I do a lot of research, and I've always done that around everything that I talk about as a wellness coach. So I loved the science piece of it, but the methodology, the approach made total sense to me. The idea of, I had been for years, I had been saying like, maybe it's time to try different, not harder. That was kind of my slogan. And I would talk about, that all the time. I had presentations that I did around that, how to make change, and how one of the things that keeps us stuck is the fact that we keep trying the same old extreme approach over and over and over again. So this idea of being able to look at it from the perspective of an experiment and just really like root yourself in curiosity and let go of assumptions and beliefs that you had about the substance and your relationship with the substance that felt really, really true, and actually give yourself the space to find out if they actually were true. It just felt so right to me. So I don't know whether the methodology was necessarily that new. It's just it had never crossed my mind to apply it to alcohol.
Wow.
And there were just so many things that I thought I knew for sure were true about alcohol that I had never thought about questioning. Yeah, it's been great. I mean, I have taken a lot of the things that I know from this Naked Mind and that certification, and I use them across the board with my clients. I use them around burnout. I use them around parenting. I use them around relationships. They're not just applicable to drinking.
Wendy, I'm curious, going back to the burnout, what kind of change did you see in your clients when they addressed the alcohol as part of the systemic burnout issue, right? So you only address burnout in the early days of your coaching. Then you layered on this alcohol, addressing the alcohol in the equation. Did you see people able to manage their burnout easier or better or different, or what impact was there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I know intuitively and from my own experience clinically that if alcohol is a problem, if it's become a problem for someone and they're drinking regularly, then it will absolutely contribute to burnout and make it really difficult to recover from burnout. But the truth is that the clients that I was working with and attracting before I got certified now, before I got alcohol free myself and then got certified as an alcohol free coach, those clients were not coming to me with respect to their relationship with alcohol. It was just like one little piece on the side. So it's a difficult question to answer accurately, but I will say that there are several clients who worked with me privately around burnout and balance and wellness where we did not address drinking, who have since become alcohol free. Some of of them have come back for coaching around alcohol. So, and those people are finally feeling truly free and truly well. So yeah, it's a great question. Now I only really occasionally have burnout clients who are not drinkers, but I would say 80% of the clients that I work with come to me because they are burnt out and drinking too much. And they recognize that. They've already self-identified in both of those areas. Yeah.
They sort of lead into each other. They kind of feed off each other, right? Like I drink more because I burn out more, and I burn out more because I drink more. And yeah, it's a vicious cycle, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's one of the main signs of burnout is increased reliance on unhealthy coping mechanisms. And I had been talking about that in corporate presentations and wellness stuff for years and years and years. But for whatever reason, I guess I just had a mental block up against it. I was not addressing it in my own life and was not talking about it a lot with my clients.
Well, and I wanted to ask you about your husband's relationship with alcohol. Does he drink, or was this something where he's maybe cut back, or has it never been an issue for him?
No, I would say, yes, it was an issue for him in that he was drinking with me. So, but one of the things that was really interesting that I learned from the experiment is that I was like 100% the ringleader in our relationship. So, he was drinking because I would go get a bottle of wine and bring it home, or because I would suggest that we have a drink or whatever. And so when I quit drinking, well, I didn't know I had quit. I just thought I was doing an experiment. When I did my first 30-day experiment that has morphed into 5.5 years, I didn't even tell him I wasn't drinking anymore. I just did it on my own. It was really, really hard. I had no one to talk to. There were no groups at the time, no online communities. I felt like I was just totally out there in the wind by myself. But after a month of not drinking, I had the conversation with him where I said, have you noticed that I have not been drinking? And he said, yeah, I guess I kind of noticed, but like it hadn't even registered with him. I mean, it was the hardest thing I had ever done. And he had not even really noticed it, which was, I guess, gave me some really good information about his own relationship with alcohol, right? Like he just wasn't thinking about it in the way I was thinking about it. And then I remember him asking me, like, are you going to do this forever? Like, what is this? And I said, I have no idea if I'm going to do it forever, but I can tell you that it feels really good right now. And I'm committed to, as long as it feels better to not drink, I'm going to not drink. And I don't know how long that will last. And he said, oh, well, don't you think you'll like miss it? Like, what about, if we go, I can't remember what examples he gave, probably like go on vacation or, special occasions. And I said, here's what you don't know about my relationship with alcohol. Here's what I've never told you. Those nights when I'm up at 3 a.m. and you think I'm just having insomnia because I'm perimenopausal, I'm actually beating the crap out of myself about the fact that I drank again last night. I'm actually getting my laptop out and Googling, am I an alcoholic? I'm actually making a plan for the next day. I'm writing lists. I'm trying to figure out how I can balance out the fact that I drank the night before. You don't know this is what's happening in my mind. And it is the single thing that I worry about the most in my life right now. And when I told him that, I could just see the light bulb go on in his brain. And it's not that he wasn't supportive up until that point. He was just curious. He just really didn't understand it. And then he's been incredibly supportive ever since around the whole thing. His own drinking has just diminished radically, drastically as a result of me not drinking, really. And so he still occasionally has a drink, but he is not a big drinker. And I would say his drinking consumption is probably down by 95%. That's my guess.
Wow.
So,
and for those not watching the video, the reason Amy chuckled wasn't because of your struggle at 3 a.m. It's because I've laid next to that same person for many nights at 3 a.m. I was up at 3, always up at 3 a.m. doing this and that and on the phone. And live that. I've lived that.
And it's amazing how we're all separated. We, like you just described everything that I was going, and I thought I was all alone. You thought you were all alone in this, and we're all Googling the same thing.
I know.
And it's, to me, that's just amazing. And it's just that human experience that here we are, we're not alone in this. And I think that for me with coaching has been just, first off, finding people was like heaven on earth almost. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm not alone. And I'm sure you probably, once you got into community, because you quit, when did you get into Annie's program, into this Naked Mind program?
I did the certification, the TNMI certification in the winter of 2020 during the pandemic. So I quit drinking in 2018, early 2018, January 14th, 2018. And I think there was a pilot of the Institute that happened in the summer. And then the first like full course was the one that I was in, which was in 2020. Yeah. As you were saying that, Amy, about being alone, I was thinking, when you're on a site, you're putting things in your cart, you're shopping online, and it says like, 400 other people have this item in their cart. It would be so great. It would have been so great for me if I'd been on my computer at 3 a.m. and it said 780 other women are currently Googling the same.
Are currently awake doing the same thing.
It's so true.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing is a lot of the women I was talking with was like, oh, I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning. But of course I was never saying anything about alcohol. And then those other women, I have no idea, we're all going through the same thing and the denial that we had. How was your relationship? How did it change your relationship with your kids? I mean,
it changed my relationship with my kids. I'm not sure that they would be able to see how it changed my relationship with them. For me, my kids were 13 when I stopped drinking. For me, I was doing other things when I quit drinking. I was very focused on becoming more present in my life at the time because we had been told my dad had 1 year left to live, which is one of the reasons why I stopped drinking when I stopped drinking. But so as a result of that, I knew that I needed to slow down time. I needed to figure out how to be more present in my life because I only had a year left with this person who I loved dearly. And I knew it was going to be a very challenging year on many different fronts. And as a result of that, I also started working on meditating and gratitude. So those three things happened at the same time for me, which is, I think it's like the trifecta when it comes to getting free from alcohol, is figuring out some form of mindfulness that really works for you. And that there's so many different ways you can do that. But for me, it was meditation. And then gratitude, a meaningful gratitude practice, which is not what a lot of people think it is, but this one that's based in science. And that's what I did. So those three things together, the not drinking, the gratitude, and the meditation, it just sort of super accelerated my move from being completely non-present, which is what I was when I was a drinker. I just wanted, every day I'd be like, please let this day be over. Please let me be able to get to my couch, sit down, stop driving kids around, and actually have a glass of wine. That was what I lived for. I went from that to becoming super present in my life because of these three things that I was doing every day: not drinking, meditating for about 10 minutes, and then also practicing really quite specific gratitude. And so that really changed the way I showed up as a parent. And I don't know if my kids noticed it. I don't care. I know that I was a way better parent from the time they were 13 to 18 than I had been in the few years before that, because I was just there. I was noticing all of the things. I was calmer. My anxiety was gone. I was much more responsive as opposed to reactive. It also helped me really drastically reduce my perimenopausal symptoms, which, we could talk about that for an entire episode, so we're not going to, but there's a direct connection there. And so that made a big difference just in terms of mood swings and how I showed up just every day with my kids. So it made a big difference that I was well aware of. I don't know whether they were aware of it or not, but I'm so glad that I did.
Oh, I love that. And I want to take us into, you have, when we quit drinking and we start to get really present, we start to discover our dreams. And you were always, you were coaching. And so then you get into alcohol and burnout coaching. And when we get at the very beginning, we're starting this and we don't even know what dreams are out there for us.
Mhm.
And I want you to tell us about one of your dreams that you didn't know about, that how things have morphed into your
Mm.
new coaching that you're
Mhm.
doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. There are actually three things that have happened since I quit drinking that I did not even know were dreams of mine. Now I'm going to forget because I'm menopausal. I'm going to forget them just as I said that. Never use a number, I've learned, because now you're stuck with that number. No, the three things that have happened. So well, one thing that's happened is that I've rediscovered a love of writing, which I did not even know I was missing. And that has just become a massive part of my life now. I've been writing like almost nonstop now for the last 18, 20 months, maybe. I work with two different writing coaches. I'm in a huge writing community based out of England. Like, I just love it. And that was something that I did not think was going to be available to me, that came as a result of the not drinking. I guess also the podcast was the second thing. So I started a podcast called Bite Size Balance. I'm moving into my 4th season this September. That is, I never would have had the confidence or the courage to start that podcast. And it's become just such a delightful part of my life. I absolutely love doing it. And so that was, it just would not have happened if I had been drinking, because I was tired all the time. I was tired. I was bitter. I was, just generally walking around telling myself that my life was not that great when it in fact was fantastic. So I could not see anything further than literally the next thing in front of me. So podcast was great. And then the last thing is moving into coaching other coaches, which is just, always been kind of at the back of my mind over the last 13 years. I've taken lots of different programs with other coaches. I've been mentored. I've worked with, a variety of consultants and experts around business. And when I got certified through This Naked Mind, because I had already been coaching for about 10 years, I had lots of coaches who were newly certified approaching me and asking me if I could support them and help them in building their business. And I did a lot of that work one-on-one with coaches. And then eventually just thought, what am I doing? I love this. I love it so much. It's so fun for me to help other coaches succeed. And I cannot possibly serve all of these people one-on-one because there's only one of me. And I also have a podcast, and I love to write, and I have a really busy private burnout and alcohol practice. I have to come up with something else, which is what led to the business building bootcamp, which is the BBB that you've been talking about. And just creating really honestly, I've created so many programs over the years as a coach, but this is the one that felt like from the very beginning, I just had this feeling that this was going to be great, like really, really great. And as a result, I was excited about creating the content. I was excited about launching the beta last year. And we've now been running for about a year. And it is just, it's my favorite part of my week. As you know, Amy, I love coaching this group of coaches that I have. I love the fact that it's an evergreen program. People can join anytime they're ready to join. And I love building the responsive programming. So listening to you guys and figuring out what it is you need, and then creating new content to meet those needs. It's just super fun. Now I sound like a real geek, but it's actually a really, really fun program for me to coach. I don't have stress about it. I show up. I feel prepared all the time for it, because the last 13 years and the 12 years before that as a lawyer, all of that business experience prepared me for this thing. So it just feels like the natural next thing for me, but I would not have done this if I had still been drinking. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that totally plays into what a lot of people have testimonies about, of especially like entrepreneurs and people own their own business, of how their business has grown after they quit drinking, because they have time, they have the energy, they have the desire, they have the motivation. And, you use that time when you would have been, to your point, 5 o'clock sitting on the couch drinking, to actually do something more constructive. Right. And whether my own business did the same thing, and more organically, right? Just by not spending all the time not doing stuff. Right.
Right.
Yeah. So much time doing nothing that I did, I couldn't grow anything.
And I think it's the energy too. The energy that you bring to the group, Wendy, has been, I mean, I knew the moment I saw you drop the information and I scrolled through it and I'm like, I'm doing this, and I'm going to you going, okay, I want you to read through all this. This is amazing. I'm telling you right now, I'm like going through, like selling you to him and giving your background. And I'm like, this program is so incredible. And I hadn't even signed up yet, but I could already tell. And I want people to know that it's so easy to use. I mean, the first thing was just a checklist. You're going to be an entrepreneur. And, if you're a coach, specifically it's for coaches. But when you go through it, really, I would say any entrepreneur is going to look at this and go, oh, yeah, these are the things. And it was so great to be able to just take that initially and go, okay, here's my assignment. Let's start working this. And then going in, you have all these different modules that have been laid out so concisely. And the other thing that I love is just your willingness to help us jumpstart to the next level instead of sitting there and going, okay, well, what do I do? No, I get to come on and ask you questions every week and say, okay, this is what's going on. I mean, today just alone, it was funny because I'm, like as I told you, I had this like, okay, well, yesterday wasn't great, but I'm just going to work my plan. I'm working my list. And then today, again, I hate to tell people, I still do sometimes occasionally have issues with sleep, not related to drinking, but I was like, I came on and I'm like really excited that I'm getting things done. And you have this great idea. You're like, Amy, this is what I would tell my clients, put together an accomplished list. So write down all of these things that you have accomplished, but maybe aren't on your checklist so that you can actually feel good about what you're doing through your day because you are busy. And I loved that. I was like, oh my gosh, this is what every week I come away with something that I know I can put to use in my business or with my clients. And I just appreciate it. I appreciate everything that you put into your business. And I just have immense gratitude to you for this.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I always say I can always count on Amy being the first person in the room. So I have gratitude for you always being prompt and on time.
Well, Wendy, and I think the service you offer, like it's true for somebody who wants to be a coach as any freelance type of work, right? Like a lot of people have the passion and I want to be a fill in the blank, right? A coach, a photographer, whatever. And I have the passion to do that work, but that doesn't mean I know how to run the business and make it work and be found and get the work. And that's the value you layer on top of it. Like you can be a great coach, but if nobody's knocking on the door, that doesn't help. And how do I do that as a person with probably limited means at the beginning, right? And maybe not a lot of technical background. Like what's the way, how do I get this ship off the ground a little bit to kind of get some momentum? Because once you get that momentum, right, you're better off.
Totally. And people die on the vine and I hate seeing it. It's a hard thing to build a business. Business building is hard. There's a reason why most people don't do it. But for those of us who are out there in the trenches trying to build a business, it is really important to figure out how to make money. That is the truth of it, because if you don't make money, you're not going to be able to continue doing it. And if you're in this because you absolutely love coaching and you love transforming lives, great. Me too. But you have to make money or else you won't be able to transform lives. And so, I'm just really passionate about helping coaches succeed and create sustainable, resonant, profitable coaching practices so they can keep doing what they love and not burn out doing it, right? Like do it in a way that's actually sustainable for them, which is what we all dream of. But honestly, most of these coaching programs don't provide us with anything around that. But you're right, Matt, like it applies to anybody, all small business people. I wish there was more of this stuff out there. And there are lots of fantastic programs out there. This one is geared to coaches specifically. Yeah. Not just alcohol coaches. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find I feel like, and I'm asking you a rhetorical kind of question, I guess, is expectation setting part of the challenge? Like I go into it expecting it to be easy or I don't expect it to be. And that's why I made a lot of people bail or don't grow. It's like they either weren't expecting the work or don't know how to do the work. Like my expectations are misaligned, or maybe whatever you're wanting to do, like everybody's like, oh, you see ads for whatever you want to do, like, oh, make $1 million cleaning garbage cans, whatever. It's like, oh, I'm not making $1 million. I'm out. Is that expectation or big challenge for people?
For sure. Like social media doesn't help with this, because you'll see if you're on social media as a coach, you're going to get flooded with ads or how you can make, 6 figures in your first year coaching, or how you can launch a program and make, $100,000 in your first launch. And that frankly is just not practically doable for the average coach. So not without a ton of upfront capital, which most coaches don't have. So yeah, I think part of it is that that expectations get skewed, but it's not our fault. I mean, this is the world that we're in. We're in a world of like quick fixes. It's no different from wellness, right? Everybody wants the extreme quick fix that's going to get them there the fastest. And I'm just here to say I've been doing this for 13 years and it took a lot of work to get where I am today. Yeah. But I also made a ton of mistakes. I learned a lot of lessons the hard way. And if I can help other coaches avoid those mistakes and get here faster, then I will feel amazing about that. And that is really what this program is all about.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm excited because those unseen dreams, since you and I are now in a coach's program, it's like, okay, I feel like there's, I can come in and go, okay, all right, I have this idea and you'll work with any of us. And one other thing I wanted to also just highlight is the quality of the mastermind speakers that you have brought in has been phenomenal. And I just really appreciate that you are putting in that effort into your program. Obviously, I know that you would do that, but it's just so refreshing. That's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting this.
And we've had some cool speakers, and some of that is just because I happen to know some really cool people, and part of it is because I go out and look for people if there's something that you guys want to know about and I'm not the right person to speak to it. But yeah, that's been really fun for me too. Like it's all been really fun. And I was just thinking as you were talking, I mean, one of the coolest things about being able to do this new thing that I do now as a result of not drinking, which is coach coaches, is that when I think about all of you succeeding out there, what that means to me is that you're serving clients, and you're serving clients as a result of succeeding. And part of your success is as a result of the work that I do, which means I'm actually helping more clients. Like it just feels, it's such a cool way for me to, sort of round out the end of my working career. I mean, this is something that I will do until I retire, I think, because I love it so much. And I just am so happy that I get that I'm getting this opportunity to do this kind of work at the end of all of it, because the more successful coaches there are out there, the more people get helped by amazing coaches. And I think I just truly, obviously, because I've been doing this for so long, I really believe in the power of coaching. I think coaching is incredible, and people can transform their lives with a good coach. So that's really cool too.
I love it. And I love that abundance mindset. And I feel like this is such an amazing time. I mean, we've come out of a horrible pandemic, but some of the gifts we've been given have been that we now connect so effortlessly through Zoom and through, I mean, like the podcasts and everything. It's like, it's all just made things, there's been so many things that are so much easier, but being able to help somebody who, for me, like someone who lives in Canada and someone who lives in Florida and someone who's in Texas or California, wherever, and bringing these women together and being able to be on the sideline and getting to watch them make these connections has been so amazing. And you're part of that. You have helped formulate what I'm doing. And I really appreciate it.
Oh, that's cool. Well, you're doing it, and I am so glad that you guys are doing the podcast and that you've got this practice going. It's amazing.
If you had a nickel for every time around here, say, well, Wendy said, I'm like, you could retire today, probably.
I'm like, well, let me go and look, and I can bring it up.
I was talking to Wendy all the time. All right, well, I get the last question though, Wendy.
Okay, great.
And feel free to throw in your husband's vote too. But since we're a non-drinking crew, what's your favorite go-to non-alcoholic beverage, either around the house or when you go out or what have you?
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I just have one, but I would say the thing I drink the most around the house is kombucha cut with sparkling water. That's been my favorite since the beginning. And when I first stopped drinking, that was what I used to replace the ritual of red wine. So I would pour it into a really beautiful wine glass, and that was what I would drink. And I saved it. I always say I never drink it at lunchtime. And there's a reason I don't do that, even though it's just kombucha and it's available all over the place, but I save it for that nighttime thing because it's become part of that ritual for me. So I'd say that's my favorite. But oh my gosh, like the non-alcoholic beers that are available now are just insane. And I've also been trying lots of really cool non-alcoholic spirits as well in drinks. So I really love the Lyre's London Spirit, which is their gin I think that is so good with some tonic and lime. And I mean, there's not much I don't like, Matt, but I think the message I would want to get out there for someone who's considering taking a break from alcohol or just experimenting with it, there's so much in terms of options out there now. So much stuff. Yeah.
And I love that you touched on one of our favorite things is replace the ingredients, but keep the ritual. That was so beneficial to us. And I love that was for you too.
That's a big one. Well, Wendy, how can everybody get a hold of you?
Oh, well, you can just find me through my website, which is just wendymccallum.com. And if you want information on the BBB program, you just add a /BBB after that. If you want information on burnout and alcohol coaching, that's there. And also you can find out information about the Bite Size Balance podcast there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being with us today.
Oh, thank you guys. It's been a treat.
Well, thank you, Wendy, for that information. I know we got a little business-sided, but I think there's probably some listeners out there who have some side hustles and whatnot. So yeah, they get that too. But, quitting the booze, and I've heard a lot of times where you quit the booze and you have more time for your business and your business grows. And,
oh, absolutely. Yeah. Or you quit it and you're like, I got extra time. What am I going to do now?
Maybe I'll run my business.
Or what am I going to, and so many people, decide that they want to do something else. We know different people who work full-time jobs, who have a band, who, now I know people who've written books. I know a lot of coaches. I know other people who have created a whole different side hustle.
Yep. Sitting around boozing it up every night.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, awesome. Well, thank you again, Wendy, for being on the podcast. That is it for us for this week. Join us again next week when we'll talk about those 10 tips for your marriage. There'll be an extra big Marriage Monday. But until then, I'm Matt, along with Coach Amy. Wish you peace and love from the cornfields. We are out.